Hello everybody, welcome to today's lesson. We're going to dig into chapter 8 and talk about arrays. And this is an essential data structure. It kind of steps us into more advanced data structures. And we're going to start with just creating some simple arrays and handling it from there. I do want to mention that there is some talk about pointers. I realized that we kind of skipped over some of the stuff on pointers to get to this point. And I do want to cover that, and we're going to cover that next week. So we're just going to blaze through arrays. Please read the chapter. This is going to be chapter 8, I believe, if you have a chance. And because I think it's chapter 8, we're going to call this chapter 8.cpp. And we're going to build a couple of functions here. Or we'll just stick it in the main function again like last time. So we're going to include the IO stream because we're going to be bringing this stuff in from the user. And we're going to once again use namespace standard because we don't want to have to type in std : all the time. And let's declare an array. So we're going to create that main function. Because it's an int, we're going to create that return immediately, that returns 0. And then we're going to have a array. And I just want to talk about a simple array declaration. So this particular array, we're going to have 5 scores. And those scores are going to be 88, 92, 79, 94, and 86. Okay, so there's our array declaration, and if we want to output this array, like we want to print it, we can simply print the array, right? And really, okay, I guess it probably would be beneficial to have a print array function. So we're going to create a print array function. We're just going to say void print array. And that void print array is going to have the actual array. And it's going for an integer. And it's going to have the size of the array. Right? So let's just go ahead and create a print array function so we can see what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and say void print array. And we are going to pass in that array. We're going to make it a constant so the array is not changed because we have to pass an array by reference. We don't want it to change at all in this particular function. So we're going to bring in that array and we're going to bring in the size. And obviously that changes my header a little bit because I didn't finalize that by putting the constant keyword. So let's put that constant back in there. And we're going to print this array. And effectively, when we print an array, we're going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than size, I++. We're going to use that for loop as an iteration. This for loop, if it'll look similar to other for loops you've seen in the past, almost exactly like a Java for loop, with an array is one exception between this and a Java for loop, and that is we don't have a way to explicitly look at the size of an array. There is a way to dig into it, but we're not going to do that right now. So we're going to just say score 1, or sorry, that's not score. This is a scores array, but we're going to call this element 1, and we're going to output array at I. And then we're going to inline, so you can see every element in this array. Inline, okay. I thought that would turn a color, and it didn't. It's kind of scary. Either way, there's element 1, and so if we want to print an array, we can print the array. So I'm going to just go and up here say, I'm going to output this, and it's just going to say test scores. We are going to print array, and that array is going to have scores and size, which is going to be 5 in this case. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and run this array by compiling it first. And there it has been compiled. We forgot to save it. I forgot to save it. You didn't. But here it is. It's now saved. You can see it saved in the file name on the side. And I'm going to come back here and recompile this now. You can see it is now compiled as chapter 8, which has that executable above it. No, it doesn't. Alright, because I didn't declare this as an int. That's why. Let's get that fixed. That was a Python reflection right there. That's what happens when you code in Python during the day and try to code in C++ at night. Alright, so now we're going to be going and run this chapter 8. Alright, there you go. We have 92, 79, 94, 86. What happened? Well, I is less than size, I is less than 88, 92. Array at I plus plus. I is equal to 0 size. We passed in the array. We've instantiated the array. Oh, it's sorry, it's right there. It would help, I guess. Let's go ahead and put this /n right there so that it goes on the right line. I'm looking for something that's already there. It's on. Let's go ahead and run this again. You can see now element 1, element 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I plus 1. Shoot. That's supposed to say I plus 1 so that it gives us each element in the sequence. Shouldn't make these mistakes when I'm lecturing, but here you go. There it is. So now you have element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm not a big fan of... Let's do this a different way. I'm going to put the \n for that new line inside that, and that should look a lot better. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and run this now. There, that looks nice. Okay, so you can see this array. It's been instantiated and it's been output. And we have that print array function that we'll probably use as we go through this video. Alright, so now I'm going to have the user input their own test scores. And so that's pretty straightforward. Instead of having the test scores be input by the automatically, instead of me doing it implicitly, I'm going to have the user ask, like, hey, you input 5 test scores. So we're going to put that out to the console. We're going to say enter 5 test scores, right? And we still want to create an array of scores at 5, and really that 5 is kind of a magic number, so let's go ahead and just say size equals 5, and then we're going to go ahead and pass size in here as part of that instantiation. Alright, so now we're going to enter 5 test scores, and this is going to start looking a little more normal. Get that done right. 4 int I equals 0, I is less than size, I plus plus, and we're going to ask the user to give us a score. So output score I plus 1 this time to do it right. We're going to put in that colon, and then we're going to say CIN goes back to input scores at I. No, sorry, just scores at I. It's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to print that array again, so that program should run fairly effectively. Let's see what it does now. Enter 5 test scores. Score 1, 88. Oh, that's what happens when you don't have your numlock key on. 88, 85, 92, 100, 54. Okay, so now you can see those test scores have been output. Alright, it's pretty cool. Alright, or maybe we want to change that to you entered, but either way, this works. Okay, so I want you to know that C++ does not check array bounds, so I can actually come in here and say scores at 17 equals 88. I can do that and it will work, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to do that, and so I would recommend you don't do that because it's just bad memory allocation. There's no real problems, and generally speaking, if you do this in a massive deployment, it can lead to unexpected behavior crashes. So make sure your loops use valid bounds, that the bounds to the loop is less than the array size and greater than 0. Alright, let's build a couple of functions where we average, or a couple of algorithms where we average and sum the array, and this is also fairly straightforward. We're gonna create, let's just do it right here in the main method. I can sum and average at the same time. So here at the top, I'm just gonna say sum equals 0, and we're gonna create a double for average. Now be aware that we're gonna do integer division, so we want to static cast one of our values as a double, right? So let's go ahead. We have output the scores here. We're gonna change this to u entered. Take this line off because that's bad juju. And then we're gonna come down here and say the sum is sum the average is I think I did average. Did I do double average? Yeah. I don't know what angle is. Let's do that right. Alright, there you go. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, we already have sum assigned to 0 and double average has been declared. So let's go ahead and just quickly do the for loop. So once again, we're gonna effectively, we can copy this line of code. Actually, you know, to keep this simple, let's sum it right here inside of this for loop, right? We're gonna sum plus equals scores at I. That should work. So we're bringing in the user's input and we are summing it back to scores at I. So this should work pretty well, right? And then the average is fairly straightforward. Here we just say average is equal to sum divided by size, but we need a double, so we're going to go ahead and use that static cast function to cast this first variable to a double. So we're going to use static cast double of sum divided by size, and this will give us the sum and the average of the 5 values we input. So let's go ahead and see this work. 80, 80, 80, 80, 80. This is pretty straightforward. The sum is 400. The average is 80. Let's go ahead and do this again, but with some scores that are a little more different. And this should give me an average of 83.4, and it does. So the next question you might have is, how do we pass an array to a function? Well, fortunately, we already did that with the print array function. I just created that and without telling you how to do it. But arrays can be passed to functions, and the way we pass an array to the function is just create that constant array parameter and pass it in as a pass by reference. Now, arrays are passed by reference, so the C++ is getting like basically the first index of the array, and it's using that as a pointer to the array. We want to use that constant keyword so that you don't accidentally modify it in one of those functions. You have to always pass in size explicitly because C++ arrays are not tracked for size. Now the next thing I want to address is simply adding some names to this. So we have the test scores. What if we want to add an array of names, right? So we can say name, right? Let's go ahead and say name, and I+1. Here we have a name being brought in, and we are going to bring in for simplicity, we're just going to bring in the next word that is input into name. Names at I. Right. We don't have a names array yet, so we are going to string names of size, and we're going to go from there. Okay, so now we have a parallel array for names and score. And let's go ahead and run this code so you can see it. And I will say Chad scored an 80, Lisa scored a 70, Jasmine scored a 95, and Hector scored 100, and I don't know, Philip scored a 92. So the average works, the elements work. What we did not output is the string array, and obviously I can't send those strings to integers, but I can create another print, right? Or I'll just say print both arrays, and we will pass in a constant string array. And a int array. Alright, so we need to make this parameter list match what's on top. Let's go ahead and do that as well so that it all is matchy-matchy. There you go. So now that looks good, and we are going to print the name and the grade. So we are going to do something similar here, and we're just going to say name, and instead of putting an inline, we're just going to put a dash. Alright, and we're going to say grade. Alright, so name and space dash grade. Right. You might want to set width to this, because that would make that look really nice and columnar. We're not going to do that right now for this video, but just be aware that that would benefit us a little bit. Alright. What did I do? Oh, because I didn't pass in the names array. There we go. Should be good. Hold on. Constant string, string array, constant int array, dash output the grade, print both arrays. Oh, I see the problem. Print both arrays. I didn't change the name here. And we will run this again. Print both arrays. Print both arrays. Okay, cool. Should be good. Let's do this right. Enter Chad 80 or Chad 8. Chad is really bad. Jasmine 95. Philip 100. Hector 100. We'll just say Jimmy this time, and he got a score of 72. Alright, so now you have name 1, 8, grade 1, 8. Obviously made a mistake, and that's very simple, that instead of saying array, instead of saying string array, I passed an array. So let's do this one more time, right? And we will see this work. Alright, Chad 85, Jimmy 96, Jasmine 100, Manny 85, Danny got an 80. Alright, so here we go. Alright, so now you have the names and the grades in this parallel array. What's the function of parallel arrays? Well, I mean, they're useful for simple record keeping before we learn about structs and classes, which we're going to learn about shortly. To recap today, arrays store a fixed list size of elements. You access elements using index notation, so like array at 0. Arrays have to stay within bounds. Arrays can be passed to functions, and to semi-level they can return from functions. We didn't do that today, but you don't really return the array, you return the initial index. Parallel arrays store related data side by side. You want to use arrays when you need fast, simple storage of similar values, but they don't automatically resize and they don't track their own length. But this is the beginning. This is an intro to what we're going to do with arrays, and this sums up the lesson on arrays for today. Thank you.